So let's keep it real for a second, okay? Oftentimes, many of us, myself included, can be a little jealous or envious of Capricorn energy. So Capricorn is the sign of success. And so people that have prominent Capricorn placements or prominent Capricorn energy, they typically exude this aura of boss, of authority, of expert, or they have the outward markers of success. They've got the cars, they've got the designer, they've got the bags, they've got the status, right? And so often we can be like, damn, I kind of wish I had some of that, or damn, I kind of wish I had that kind of energy, right? But much like everything else, and much like every other sign, there's so much more than meets the eye when it comes to Capricorn. Now, I don't know about you, but I've had quite an extensive experience with Capricorns in my life, particularly like in the dating realm. And depending on how you feel about it, you may be like, oh yeah, I love Capricorn, or yeah, I'm never gonna do that again. But the one thing I can say about Capricorn energy is that it is structured, can be a little strict, and often it can be a little cold. This isn't the lovey-dovey kind of energy that you may see with like a Pisces or even like a Leo, right? Capricorn gets down to business. Again, Capricorn is the sign of success. So not only is Capricorn kind of obsessed with success, but they tend to see things long-term. Commitment, longevity, structure, these are the hallmarks of Capricorn energy. And so when we're talking about Capricorn risings are people who kind of exude this energy first and foremost, right? When you first meet someone who's Capricorn rising, that Capricorn energy is undeniable. But it's not just about being cold, strict, and wanting designer bags. Capricorn is complex. When we talk about Capricorn rising, the way that you show up in the world is anything but ordinary. All right, so in this video, I will be discussing everything that you need to know about Capricorn rising in your natal chart. So stick around, you definitely don't want to miss this. Hello, my loves. As always, I hope that this video finds you well and in excellent spirits. If this is our first time meeting, welcome. My name is Mel. I'm a professional astrologer and sound therapist, and I'm the founder of Divine Feminine Works, where I help people unlock their divinity and discover their magic. And as always, if you're returning, welcome back. So today's video is all about Capricorn rising. All right, so interestingly enough, I started this rising sign series last year, and in my normal Virgo fifth house energy, I was like, oh, you know what? I will do one rising sign video a week. It'll take 12 weeks. Bada bing, bada boom, done. Girl, it's taken like 12 months and I'm doing my best here. But we are keeping the party going. And today we are talking all about Capricorn rising. All right. And so, like I said before, Capricorn has this obsession almost with success. Capricorn sees the long term. They do things for the long haul. And so that lends itself to a certain amount of seriousness that Capricorn energy has. And if you've had any experience with Capricorn energy in your life, you'll notice that they are kind of serious. Like I said, Capricorn loves to get down to business. And so at the very core of Capricorn rising energy, you'll have someone who's likely kind of serious and someone who looks at life seriously and practically. Now, keep in mind that when we talk about our rising sign, we're talking about our first house. And our first house covers like our physical appearance. It covers our outlook on the world. It covers how people perceive us. It covers sort of our thought process, how we think. And so as a Cap rising, you see life for what it is. Dare I say that Capricorn rising is very realistic, okay? As opposed to like a Pisces rising or even like, a Scorpio rising. Cap rising is like, listen, this is what I see, so this is what it is. That also leads into that whole seriousness that Capricorn rising is known for, all right? But much like anything else, there's a lot of different nuance to Capricorn rising energy, particularly once we start talking about different areas of life, all right? So before we get into all of the details of Capricorn rising, let's cover some basics and talk about rising signs first and foremost. So first and foremost, let's cover the basics. So, generally speaking, these videos are about the general energy of the rising signs, right? So, as a Capricorn rising, that means that Capricorn is your first house. And the Capricorn energy signature, generally speaking, will give you generalizations about your life, right? It shows you how your astrological wheel is set up. Being that Capricorn is your first house, the Capricorn energy signature will sort of dictate how you think and how you appear in a general sense, right? But some of these things may make sense to you and resonate with you, others may not. And that's because we all have different personal placements when it comes to the planets. So just like I'm a Taurus rising, I could be very different from someone else who's a Taurus rising because our natal charts are different. So I say this all to say, not to take this with a grain of salt, but to understand that what I'm about to talk about is general. And if you want to know more specifics about your individual chart or how you individually express Capricorn energy, you'll want to book a session with me. All of the information pertaining to that, my services, my offerings, will be in the description box below. So definitely check that out. All right. So now, in terms of rising signs, we need to talk about what they represent and what they even are. So, in terms of what rising signs represent, your rising sign is a part of your big three, namely your sun, your moon, and your rising sign. So, you want to think of these three as like a three-faceted diamond. And this diamond represents the core or the foundation of your personality. So, we start with your sun sign, and that is your outward expression. Your sun sign shows how you shine as an individual. So the characteristics of your sun sign will, demonstrate how you act, how you think, how you express yourself outwardly. The most important thing to know about your sun sign is that it is about outward expression. In contrast, you have your moon sign, and your moon sign represents your emotions, your private world, and your inner world, in fact. So, whereas your sun sign represents your outward expression, your moon sign represents your inward expression. It represents how you are emotionally fulfilled, what fills you up emotionally, and your privacy and your private world. And then you throw your rising sign in the mix. So your sun sign is outward, your moon sign is inward, and your rising sign is the billboard that you hold up as you move about through the world. It's how the world perceives you. So, whereas your sun sign and your moon sign are relatively subjective, right? Because your sun is about how you express yourself, your moon is about how you feel. Your rising sign is kind of how other people perceive you, how the world perceives you. Again, it's this billboard that says, here I am, here's how I show up in the world. All right. So it's more objective. But taking it a step further, what even is your rising sign? So if you're a newbie to astrology, I'm pretty sure you know your sun sign because everyone pretty much knows that. If you've looked at your chart, you may be aware of your moon sign, but the rising sign can almost be an outlier in a sense. So in astrology jargon, your rising sign is the sign that was rising on the eastern horizon the moment that you were born. So it is your personal sunrise. It represents your entrance and your incarnation in this lifetime. And so, with it being with the way that the world perceives you, it's like your entrance, it's your calling card, it's you saying, here I am. And it's typically the energy that people either see, feel, or experience first. Okay. So it's important to understand the objectivity of your rising sign and how often you may not resonate with the characteristics of your rising sign because it tends to be so objective. Whereas your sun sign represents me and how I express myself, and my moon sign represents how I feel and how I emote, how the world sees me, how the world perceives me could be completely opposite from those two. So it's important to understand your rising sign because it can often represent the facet of our personality that we're not comfortable with, we haven't exuded, or kind of what people project onto us in a sense. All right. But again, it forms that facet of this three-faceted diamond that's namely your sun, your moon, and your rising sign. All right. So now, without further ado, let's get into the specific characteristics of Capricorn rising energy. All right. So when we talk about Capricorn rising energy, we clearly have to talk about the Capricorn energy signature. But by virtue of being a Capricorn rising, it means that Capricorn is your first house. And in astrology, your first house covers your physical appearance, how the world perceives you, and even your outlook on life. It also covers sort of your frame of mind and how you think about the world. So, first, let's talk about physical characteristics. So, in terms of anatomy, every part of the body, or should I say, every zodiac sign covers a different part of the body. And when we talk about Capricorn, we're talking about the skeletal system. So, when we talk about the physical appearance of Capricorn rising, these may be people that have high cheekbones, really defined facial structures. They could, that chiseled kind of look that could definitely be a part of the Capricorn rising physical features, right? These could also be people that have very defined bodies, right? Could be very chiseled, very structured, looks very strong also. Okay. The other thing that I'll say about the physical characteristics of Capricorn is that they may have a very serious demeanor. In other words, Capricorn rising are the experts of resting bitch face. Okay, that very serious, stoic, even angry kind of look. It's definitely part of Capricorn rising energy signature. Okay. Now, also in terms of seriousness and resting bitch face, the first house covers how the world perceives you. And so when you meet someone who is a Capricorn rising, they could have this aura of authority, this aura of seriousness to them. Okay. Now, also, one of the things that I love the most about Capricorn energy, and that's often misunderstood, is that Capricorn is a feminine sign. Now, because Capricorn gets associated with boss and authority, a lot of people, especially people new to astrology, think that Capricorn is a masculine sign, but it's not, it's feminine. And so the way that Capricorn rising shows up is this natural elegance. Again, think high cheekbones, right? That very defined facial features. So this natural elegance, and also this quiet confidence. And I think that's why a lot of people may be jealous or envious of Capricorn energy, because even though they are the authority, the boss, the expert, they don't do it in a way that's overtly expressive or masculine or very in your face or forceful. It's quiet. It's this embodied confidence and this embodied authority that is amazing, actually, in my opinion, at least. All right. And so the way you show up in the world is elegant, confident, defined, structured, and authoritative in a soft and embodied sort of way. Now, when it comes to your first house and Capricorn rising, how you look at the world is governed by Capricorn energy. So, Capricorn energy is serious, it is stoic, but it's also very hardworking and commitment prone. Okay. Capricorn is so when we talk about the Capricorn symbology, it is the mountain goat, right? Now, the mountain goat will reach very high heights. It will reach the summit of the mountain in a slow and steady way. You'll see the mountain goat on the littlest sliver of mountain, right? They're dangerously close to the edge, but they just keep on climbing until they reach the top. And so the way that Capricorn rising sort of sees the world is not only serious, but long term and goal oriented. So a lot of what they do has a purpose to it. It has an end game. It's not just frivolously flitting about, although there's nothing wrong with that. But Capricorn is like, listen, I have a trajectory and I'm going to work toward it. Capricorn energy is no stranger to hard work. And they want and crave and are almost obsessed by this sense of accomplishment. It's the accomplishment and reaching the summit, reaching the finish line that gives Capricorn their confidence. And so that's how they view the world. Not only that, but very realistically and practically. Now, when we talk about Capricorn energy, at best, they are structured, they are disciplined, and they're definitely ready to do the hard work to get to the finish line. Now, at worst, Capricorn energy can be workaholics, very status oriented, devoid of emotion and imagination. They just see things in terms of black and white, start to finish, hard work, and that's it. And so you probably know some people, I'm not going to say who are like that, but who exude those kind of characteristics. And much like anything else, you kind of have to take the good and the bad in order to understand Capricorn rising energy. But either way, to sum it up, serious, structured, and success driven. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. All right. So now that we talked about Capricorn rising energy generally, let's get into the different areas of life for Capricorn rising and see how the energy plays out. All right. So this is where things get interesting because while Capricorn energy represents your first house, and because your rising sign is part of your big three, the energy signature of Capricorn is obviously prominent in your personality. However, because everyone's natal chart is made up of 12 houses and 12 different signs, you've got the energy of all zodiac signs. Okay. And so it may surprise you because you may think because you're a Cap rising or you know a Cap rising, you're like, oh, this person is serious and they're just concerned about money and status. However, in different parts of their life, they exude very different energy signatures. So, in terms of these different areas of life, most people are typically really concerned about three areas. Okay. And so that's relationships, it's money, and it is career. All right. So, first, let's tackle relationships. To understand relationships in your life, you would look to your fifth house of dating. That's your sort of dating house, your non serious house, as in non committed, right? And romance. And then your seventh house, which is your house of commitment and your house of marriage. Okay. So for Capricorn rising, your fifth house is Taurus. So when it comes to dating and romance, you guys are still very practical in that area of life as well. Now, Taurus is also a feminine earth sign, but Taurus is a little more superficial. Taurus is great at working, but Taurus really likes to be pampered. As much as Taurus likes to work, Taurus likes to rest as well. So when it comes to dating, you're not only practical, but you like to be a little pampered. You like the nice things. You like someone who's going to buy you gifts, someone who is going to make you feel safe and secure. There's also a little status element in there as well, being that Capricorn and Taurus are earth signs. So you probably like someone that's got a little bit of money, someone who's got a little bit of status, someone who has the outward markers of success. That's kind of what you look for or you gravitate toward when dating. Okay. Now, this is where things get really interesting because when we talk about marriage and commitment, you kind of have a very opposite view of that. So, when it comes to you and how you present, you're stoic, serious, everything I mentioned before. But when we talk about your romantic life and your partnerships, it's very soft and it's very emotional because your seventh house is Cancer. And Cancer is the opposite sign of Capricorn. So, as Capricorn is serious, Cancer is very emotional and soft and protective. So, there is this element of not only soft and emotional when it comes to your commitments and marriage. You want someone that feels emotionally secure, emotionally safe, someone who feels like home. So you may be hard and harsh on the outside, but when it comes to your committed relationships, that's where you want softness. And that's where you tend to keep things a little private. So people may see you as the boss, right? But when it comes to your marriage and committed relationships, I should say, you're kind of a little more private there. You're a lot softer. That even goes for your business partnerships as well, because the seventh house covers business partnerships. So in that area of life, you're soft, you're emotional, fiercely protective as well, because Cancer energy may be soft, but honey, those claws will come out if necessary. But you want a partner that feels like home and where you can leave that harshness outside and come home to something soft, nurturing, and emotionally fulfilling. Okay. So now let's move on to money, because let's be real. Capricorn energy, money is on your mind quite a bit. A lot of what you do is in furtherance of money, or at least money is an important byproduct of a lot of what you do. So when we want to ascertain our money situation, we would look to our second house of personal finances and money, and our eighth house of shared finances and debt. So for Capricorn rising, your second house is Aquarius. Now, Aquarius is emotionally detached, very cerebral, but also very innovative. So, when it comes to how you make your own money personally, you could be someone who works in tech. You could be someone who uses the internet a lot. I mean, we all use the internet a lot to make money, but you could be someone who works online exclusively. Whatever you do to make money, it is innovative, or you solve problems in a very innovative kind of way. You could be an inventor. You could be someone who's maybe like a patent attorney or something like that. But either way, you probably solve problems. You likely could be an entrepreneur. You do a lot of work on the internet, or you are in tech. Okay. But either way, you also do things a little differently. So the way that you make money could be innovative, could be out in left field, could be very different from how other people make money, or even how other people in your industry make money. And if you're looking to make more money in your life as a Capricorn rising, you're going to want to solve unique problems, or you're going to want to do your work in an innovative and unique kind of way that could definitely help contribute to that ever important bottom line that you guys are constantly obsessed with. Okay. Now, when it comes to your shared resources and debt, and by shared resources, it means either money that you get from like a business association, right? A business partnership. It could represent your spouse's money. The eighth house also represents how you take on and deal with debt. And for you as a Cap rising, your eighth house is Leo. Leo is very passionate. It is very main character energy. So I wouldn't be surprised, and this is what's coming to mind first, as a Cap rising, you may be, let's say you're married to an actor, you're married to someone who does something creative. And so the influx of your shared resources comes from creativity. It could come from drama. It could come from very Leo kind of energy. It could also, a lot of times, astrology can be literal. And so your partner could be a Cancer or a Leo, right? Your seventh house is Cancer. Your eighth house, which is intimacy and shared resources, is Leo. So you literally, the money that you make from your spouse could come literally from a Leo. Could be your spouse, could be a business partner, or anything like that. But when it comes to debt, and this is interesting because you guys are likely very passionate about things, dare I say, even a little impulsive. So when it comes to debt, be mindful of spending impulsively, incurring debt when it comes to things like entertainment. This is definitely getting a payment plan for Coachella, or spending a grip on Beyonce tickets, okay, and incurring debt for that. That could definitely be something that a Capricorn rising would do. Not saying that you definitely would do it, but I wouldn't be surprised if you did. Okay, but either way, when it comes to money, debt, and shared resources, it's very Leo. It's very main character, very hot, very passionate and creative kind of energy there. And then finally, let's talk about career and work, because these are also areas of life that are very important to you as a Capricorn rising. And so when we want to ascertain our career and our job, we look to the sixth house of work and health. And then we look to the 10th house of career and public life. So first, let's talk about your sixth house. The sixth house of work deals with like your 9 to 5 or your daily responsibilities. It represents your daily life. And for you as a Capricorn rising, your sixth house is Gemini. So dare I say that when it comes to your job, or when it comes to what you do on a daily basis, it's very mixy, it's very energetic, it's very all over the place, because Gemini energy is busybody kind of energy. So dare I say, on a daily basis, your ass is very busy. But apart from that, Gemini has a lot to do with teaching and learning. So your 9 to 5 could have something to do with teaching. It could have something to do with transacting business because Gemini is the sign of the marketplace and of transactions. You could be a teacher, you could be a writer, you could be anything having to do with ideas and communication. Because Gemini is your sixth house, you probably talk a lot on a daily basis, or you communicate with people a lot on a daily basis, or you could work in communications or media, even. That might be something that you do on a daily basis. Now, your sixth house differs from your 10th house in that your sixth house is what you do on a daily basis, your job, but your career is much broader. It's sort of like your life's purpose, your calling in life, and your career, right? Not to be redundant, but you get what I mean. And so for you guys, your 10th house of career and public life is Libra. Now, it's interesting to note that both Gemini and Libra are air signs. So when it comes to career and job, you guys are involved in anything that's very communicative, lots of ideas. There could be a lot of research. There could be mediation, negotiation, one-on-one kind of interpersonal work, right? All of those kind of describe what your career and job look like. Now, Libra is the sign of relationships. So I could perhaps see you being a therapist. You could be a mediator, a negotiator, right? You could work in the legal system, right? Because, of course, Libra represents the scales and the legal system in that regard. But either way, relationships play a major role in your career. And so when it comes to career and jobs, like I said, lots of communication, lots of interpersonal relationships, a lot of busybody kind of work. And what I like about this, as it's sort of reflected via the lens of Capricorn energy, is that whatever you do for career and job, you likely have a position of authority or people view you as an authority or an expert, right? Again, this goes back to what I said before about why people perhaps are a little jealous because you are naturally the boss. Even if you're not physically the boss, right? Even if you're not a supervisor, manager, or anything like that, you exude that energy in whatever you do. All right. So you're energy of work is very outwardly expressive, communicative. Again, could be a lot of research, things like that, but that pretty much wraps up career and job for you. Okay, so now let's get into something kind of spicy. Let's get into what you don't know about yourself as a Capricorn rising. So, this is the part that I love talking about the most because we are all complex beings, right? And like I said before, even if you're a Cap rising, Virgo sun, Leo moon, whatever your big three are, we all carry the energy of all 12 zodiac signs within us, okay? Now, when it comes to the parts of our personality that we're either unaware of or sometimes even ignore, we would look to our 12th house. Now, the 12th house in astrology represents what is hidden. It can also represent our shadow side. And it's typically the energy signature of our 12th house is typically very much radically different than the energy of our first house. So, again, to reiterate, when we're talking about Capricorn rising, it is serious, stoic, it is success oriented, elegant, bossy, all of those things. But underneath the surface, you guys are like space cadets because your 12th house is actually Sagittarius. So let me explain a little bit. We have to talk about the planets that rule Capricorn and Sagittarius. So every zodiac sign is ruled by a planet, and Capricorn is ruled by Saturn. That's what gives Capricorn its very serious demeanor, okay? Saturn is the planet of limitations, of obstacles, of challenges. This is why Capricorn energy is so great at working and overcoming adversity because it's ruled by Saturn. Saturn contracts, it restricts, and it limits. Again, that also represents the seriousness of Capricorn. But by contrast, Sagittarius, which is your 12th house, is ruled by Jupiter. Jupiter is about outer space, expansion, no limits. And so this is who you are at the core. This is a part of your personality that you either ignore or may even be a little uncomfortable with. Because limitations keep you in a box, right? Limitations also contribute to the realism of Capricorn energy. When you know your limits and your boundaries, you can operate within them safely. You know things. It's very concrete. But underneath the surface of you is this boundless, limitless energy that is very much in contrast to your consciousness, right? Very much in contrast to how you see the world. And so it's important to understand that the energy signature of our 12th house has a lot to do with the reality that we experience. Our reality is shaped in part by our subconscious programming. So, what you've got running in the background of your life is typically what you see in your reality. And so, while as a Capricorn rising, you feel very safe within boundaries, you feel safe with what is real, at the core of you, you're out in outer space. There's no boundaries, there's no limits. Your reality can reflect things back to you that are larger than life, that you may find a little challenging or a little difficult to reconcile, right? Because again, Sagittarius is limitless, it's optimistic, which can often be the opposite of realistic, right? As a Capricorn rising, if you can't see it, feel it, touch it, if you can't prove it, then it might not exist to you, or you might kind of write it off. But underneath the surface, you are in touch with everything that you cannot quantify. You are in touch with the cosmos. You are driven by these beliefs that have no boundaries, right? And remember that when it comes to the energy of our 12th house, it's not to be denied, nor is it to be ignored. It's to be integrated, right? And so imagine just how more powerful you could be if how you looked at the world just wasn't just realistic, but also boundless and arguably a little curious. Now, one thing I'll say about Capricorn energy generally is that people that have prominent Capricorn placements, they often get called old souls, right? The energy of Capricorn is very mature. Okay. Now, this is important because in the context of your 12th house of Sagittarius, Sagittarius is mature, but in a different kind of way. Sagittarius is wise. Sagittarius has been through a lot in life, has seen a lot, has experienced a lot of different things that contribute to this wisdom. So when you put your first house of Capricorn together with your 12th house of Sagittarius, there is this maturity and wisdom that you go into the world with. And that's reflected back to you via your reality. So not only are you powerful, but you're also like an inner sage, right? So you've got this old soul, but this wisdom that ultimately contributes to that boss authority, quiet confidence that you guys so effortlessly exude. So don't shy away from that inner part of you that wants to explore, that wants to move past the boundaries and the structure that you have set up in your life. Explore, experience, and exude. That's how you successfully marry your first house and your 12th house. All right, my loves. So that concludes this video on Capricorn Rising. I sincerely hope that you were able to get at least one important piece of information that you can either use to move forward successfully or that you can use to have a better understanding of Capricorn Rising, a Capricorn Rising in your life, or just Capricorn energy generally. All right, for information on all of my products and services, you will find all of that in the description box below and or tagged to this video. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you in my next video. Take care.